Talk to me about negative gearing. You wrote a terrific piece in the Oz today saying the government sort of tap dancing around this issue. We're not getting a clean line on it. We know they're saying no plans. Well, they've said no plans in relation to stage 3 tax cut changes, and they certainly had plenty of those. And we also know how much they need the Greens, and the Greens are saying this must happen. Where's this one headed?
Well, again, today in question time, we saw the Prime Minister attacking the Greens because on negative gearing, it's not just the coalition that Labor is fighting against, it's the Greens. The coalition is coming from the right saying, rule out changes to negative gearing. We are not going to change negative gearing, just rule it out. And we've seen some pretty wishy-washy attempts to refuse to rule it out. A bit and pieces there. On Friday, Bill Shorten said, yeah, no, we're not doing it. I made a mistake last time. Today he said, to the best of my knowledge, we're not doing it. So they're all over the place on it as far as the coalition attack is concerned. And this will be an effective scare campaign. Capital gains, negative gearing, death tax, you name it, it's going to be a big scare campaign. But the other side, the Greens are demanding they get rid of negative gearing. And the Prime Minister today, he has become more and more aggressive towards the Greens, and he said, we won't negotiate with the Greens. Well, does that mean that the rent-to-buy system, a major election promise, is going to be the fodder for a double dissolution or won't be passed? Another promise that won't be made? I think these are real problems for the government, and they're coming from the coalition on one side, the Greens on the other.
Hey, lie on pants on fire when the Prime Minister says he won't negotiate with the Greens. I mean, that's where we get this right to disconnect, codicil, I guess, in the legislation. It was the Greens' amendment, this right to disconnect. And of course, until the government fixed it up, the amendment moved by the Greens actually imposed criminal penalties on employers if they were to contact their staff over the weekend. So he does negotiate with the Greens. He does it almost every time Parliament sits. I want to grab you, though, on another important issue because no one else much is picking this up. WA Teal Kate Cheney, she's bringing in a private members bill to give access, with this bill changing the law at a state level, in relation to euthanasia and allowing people to get approval for euthanasia over the phone via telehealth. Now, these are state-based laws, but the telephone component is federal. This is where she buys herself into it. But these laws around the country now have barely been fully operational for a year, but already the push is on to water them down. Now, I have a concern about our most vulnerable. Surely it's not too much to ask that we keep the protection in the laws as they stand, that if you want euthanasia, you must be seen in person by a doctor. I mean, how do you even verify someone's identity over the phone?
Yeah, look, I think that this is an attempt by the Teals to come in and on the federal level on euthanasia and voluntary assisted dying. The argument is, we've got to make sure that people have equal access to medical treatment, and telehealth has become such a common way to do that, and people in remote communities can then be able to use telehealth. But it's a different matter to actually say people can access euthanasia by telehealth. And by the way, she's from Western Australia. And in Western Australia, in the Northern Territory, there are some very vulnerable remote communities of Indigenous people who are very much against the idea of euthanasia, and particularly with remote treatment for women. This was the case. There were people who were very concerned about, in Indigenous areas, about the release of the abortion pill and being able to send people into remote areas, medication which actually could have endangered their lives. So to say it's about equal treatment is wrong, and I think that the federal government should stick by the control it does have to ensure, at least after these state laws have been in place for 2 or 3 years or 4 or 5 years, before it actually waters them down already. We've seen the experience overseas that once they come in, they are watered down, and you get to the stage where you have people being euthanized without reference to relatives, to people of young age and so forth. So I think that this is a dangerous move by the Teals.
And I also add in places like Canada and certainly in parts of Europe, euthanize without needing or not having a terminal illness. Dennis Shanahan, thank you.